AO2 Woodley. Today's topic is 6.2, Lau-116 series guided missile launcher. So I've been about 7 years now. My first tour on board USS Theodore Roosevelt was for 5 years, and I worked intermediate level maintenance. I worked the Lau-116 both as a technician and as a CDI, so it's safe to say I'm a subject matter expert on the topic. All right, last lesson we discussed the Lau-115 and its capabilities launching the AIM-7 missiles. Well, Lau-116 not only launches the AIM-7, but also the AIM-120. So no surprise, next lesson will be the Lau-117 and its capabilities with the Maverick missile, the AGM-65. Our maintenance manual for this launcher is 11 Tech 75 Alpha Tech 116. All right, in this manual you can find all pertinent information in terms of repair and maintenance of your Lau-116. Our enabling objective for this topic will be enabling objective 6.3, which is to describe the Lau-116 series guided missile launcher in accordance with applicable publications. Behind me is a picture of our Lau-116. All right, before we get started, I want to touch on some safety. All right, it's very important to ensure that there are no CADs or cartridge actuated devices installed in this launcher prior to any acceptance or maintenance on the Lau-116. All right, this is our breech cavity right here where both of our CCU-45 cartridge actuated devices will be located. Another thing, this gear can tend to be heavy, so please ensure a proper two-hand lift and maintain positive contact. Make sure you're wearing your safety boots as well with the steel toe. All right, it's very important that we take notes during this lesson because all of this information is testable. You must score 75 or higher in order to pass the exam at the end of the course. And you also will see it on grading exams. We're all AO, so we strive for our best, so I expect to see hundreds across the board. Does anyone have any questions on safety or anything else with the Lau-116 before we get started? Outstanding. By show of hands, who here has dealt with the Lau-116 previously, whether it be organizational level or intermediate level? Yeah, one, outstanding. All right, the purpose of our Lau-116 is to suspend, carry, and launch the AIM-7 series Sparrow and AIM-120 series AMRAAM missiles. The Lau-116 series guided missile launcher is the only ejector type launcher. What that means is it utilizes cartridge actuated devices to build up gas pressure to eject the missile rather than the typical rail type launchers where a missile is slid down a rail. Our characteristics are 44 inches in length, 16 inches in height, 9.5 inches in width, and it weighs 65 pounds. Does anyone have any questions on the purpose or characteristics before we move on to our major components? Outstanding. Our first major component will be our structural assembly. Our structural assembly provides a structural framework and load carrying provisions for the launcher. It also contains a flag assembly that is indicated to provide a positive missile lock when the missiles are loaded. Before we move on to our release mechanism, are there any further questions on the structural assembly? Outstanding. Let's move on. The release mechanism retains and releases the missile. All right, it's connected to forward and aft cylinders. All right, it's connected to those cylinders by means of gas tubes or conduits. They travel along the external of the launcher and insert into the top of those pistons so that the gas pressure can push that store away from the launcher. Before we move on to the breech assembly, are there any further questions on the release mechanism? Outstanding, let's move on. Our breech assembly contains two CADs. These CADs are CCU-45s. All right, these CADs or cartridge actuated devices are inserted in the breech cavities. All right, those breech cavities are phosphate coated. That phosphate coating is to resist carbon buildup inside of that cavity and resist corrosion. Are there any further questions on the breech assembly before we move on to our forward and aft cylinders? Tracking, let's move on. Our forward and aft cylinder assemblies house the ejector piston assemblies and store the gas pressure. As you can see behind me on the slide, the red lines indicate those gas tubes or conduits that I was previously speaking about. So the fun fact about these forward and aft cylinder assemblies is they are left-hand threaded. What that means is the typical rule of lefty-loosey, righty-tighty does not apply to these. One time when I was a young airman doing maintenance on Lau-116 on board USS Theodore Roosevelt, I did not know that they were left-hand threaded. about 20 minutes, I was trying to just loosen the cylinder so I could take it down and perform the maintenance, but I could not. Well, after struggling for quite some time, I notified my CDI. Of course, he laughed at me, told me they were left-hand threaded, and explained to me what that meant. So, needless to say, I did not repeat that mistake again, so please learn from my mistakes and don't do that. Are there any further questions on the cylinder assemblies before we move on to the umbilical? Alright, let's move on. The umbilical assembly operates the umbilical connectors. Alright, consists of an umbilical handle, which retracts the umbilical plug to give access for loading or unloading the missile onto that launcher. Does anyone have any questions about this before we move on to our electrical assembly? Let's move on. Our electrical assembly is essentially a wire harness. It provides electrical connections to function the launcher and the store. So it provides all the connections between the aircraft and the launcher to properly arm and fire that missile. Any questions on this before we move on to the principles of operation? Let's move on. Principles of operation. So 28 VDC is used to ignite those CADs. Once those CADs are expended, the gas pressure travels through those gas tubes and conduits into the cylinder assemblies. The cylinder assemblies, once under gas pressure, ejects that store away from the launcher. Alright, once it is ejected, the rocket motor is ignited, and boom, warheads on foreheads. Any further questions on the principles of operation? Outstanding. On to maintenance. So our maintenance inspection on this Lau-116 is a 364-day inspection. 364-day inspection consists of a complete breakdown, a thorough cleaning, and a build-up replacing all of the cotter pins, those one-time use consumable screws, and washers. Once it is fully assembled, there's an electrical test and a CDI inspection as well. If all those conditions are up to par, check 4.0. At that point, the launcher will be RFI or ready for issue. Are there any further questions on the maintenance inspection or any other aspect of the Lau-116 before we move on to our summary review? No? Outstanding. Let's move on. So, throughout this lesson, we covered our enabling objective, which was objective 6.3, describe the Lau-116 series guided missile launcher. In other words, we explained the components, the characteristics, and the function of our Lau-116. Alright, now I have a few questions for you all. What must be ensured prior to any acceptance or maintenance on the Lau-116? A1 Lippert.
Ensure it doesn't consist of any CADs.
Outstanding. You have to make sure there are no CADs installed. Okay, and what differs the Lau-116 from all other missile launchers utilized in the Navy? A1 Lippert.
The Lau-116 is an ejector type launcher.
Bingo, it absolutely is an ejector type launcher. Nothing like the rail type launchers that we usually utilize. Alright, once again, I'd like to touch on safety. Alright, because safety is paramount. We must ensure there are no CADs installed prior to any maintenance on the Lau-116. We must ensure we're wearing the proper PPE like steel-toed boots because this gear is heavy. Alright, there are no further questions. My name is AO2 Woodley. This has been Lau-116 Series Guided Missile Launchers.